Three-ish years ago, I did a Gaming Mysteries on the beta of Pokemon Gold and Silver. In said video, I mentioned a 1997 Space World demo of the game that bared striking differences from the final product, though unfortunately it was difficult to get a look at all those differences as there was only a very brief amount of footage from the demo released, and of course the demo itself was thought to be lost to the ether. However, the internet, ever faithful in its greatness, has not only uncovered the demo's existence, but leaked it so that everyone can experience it for themselves, which is beyond amazing. And so, to give the video proper closure, today on Gaming Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at the Pokemon Gold and Silver Space World 1997 demo, which is chock full of unused areas, sprites, and Pokemon. Now, most of the huge differences between this demo and the final game can be discovered through the debug menu, but before we hop into that, I'd like to go over what the actual demo consisted of. The demo opens up with an early version of the game's opening that we would see in the final game. That's more or less the same, except at the end, instead of showing the three starters, it showed Blastoise, Venusaur, and Charizard instead, before cutting to what has to be my favorite title screen of any Pokemon game. It's really a shame that they didn't keep this for the final version, as frankly it's beautiful. Once you start the game, you're given a very brief overview from Professor Oak before being thrust into the Pokemon world, and it starts you off in your room, in the quaint and quiet town called Silent Hill. In said town, we have some houses, a Pokemon Center that doesn't function, and what I assume is a professor's lab. In fact, it is a professor's lab, although the game won't let you into the lab under normal circumstances. And since you can't choose a starter Pokemon like you would normally, the game randomly gives you one of the three starters available, either the familiar face of Chikorita, the original fire starter Honoguma, and the original water starter, Kurosu. As there's nothing to do in town, it's time to head off and begin your journey, where you're free to walk around in the grass battling wild Pokemon, or, if you're feeling daring, you can battle a trainer, though if you don't want to battle anyone, you don't really have to. No one in the demo will engage you unless you talk to them first, which is probably for the best as everyone is kinda tough. And you're only given 10 potions to work with, and the Pokemon Center, as I said, doesn't work. Whiting out results in you going back to the title screen, making losing one of the two ways the demo will end. But you'll walk around until you encounter a mountain / wall, which you will of course walk into and end up in another area because the game wasn't finished yet. Just pretend there was a door there. The next area is fairly similar to the first. It's just a long, drawn-out map with grass and trainers, with your goal being to make it up here into this black void, which will take you to the final location in the demo, which is just a very small area with a bridge and your rival, Silver, who I've heard isn't a complete douchebag at this point in time. Whether you try and speak to him or ignore him entirely and head for the doors, he'll stop you, say some stuff in a language I can't read, and then kick you back to the title screen. Oh, and if you leave it on the title screen long enough, you get to play this little minigame with Pikachu where you collect musical notes. I'm not really sure why it's there, but it's surprisingly fun. But that's the base demo. The real fun, though, lies within the debug menu, which allows you to look at the entire Pokédex, view sprites from the game, fight in Pokemon battles. Hell, you can even play other mini-games, though most of the fun here is playing the demo with the debug on, allowing you to bypass pretty much every barrier that the demo had set in place, letting you fully explore this early Johto region. And if you're not sure which way to go, just bring up your handy map, which shows that you're apparently in Japan. Neat. The locations you can visit besides your hometown are all areas that are kind of the same-ish to the final counterpart, though not fully developed. But these early locations are listed as Old City, West, High Tech, Font, Birdon, New Type, Sugar, Blue Forest, Stand, South, North, Route 15, Route 18, Silent Hill, which is not your hometown, but instead a forest dungeon located near it, and Kanto, which in this demo consisted of a single town as opposed to being its very own region, leading some to believe that Kanto was always intended to be just a town, which I don't agree with at all. I mean, you can't really fit an entire region into one town without leaving out the majority of that region, and at that point, there's really no point in including any of it at all. It was most likely just a town during this early stage of development and was always intended to be its own region for the final release. As for the other towns, it's difficult to connect them to their final counterparts, as most of the towns are just a couple of houses and a gym, with nothing really signifying what town they could be, with the exception of Violet City and Goldenrod City, as early Violet City contains Bellsprout Tower, while early Goldenrod City contains the radio station that Team Rocket took over, as well as a bunch of rockets just kind of hanging out around town. Those are probably the most developed towns in this prototype, leaving the rest of the region a little glitchy as one might expect. And while you're exploring, it won't be unusual for you to run into buildings stacked on top of each other, clones of yourself, and lots of the number 9. At some point it infested the Johto region. They got rid of it, but I don't know, I find it kind of amusing to see the number 9 everywhere. Next, I'd like to look at some unused character sprites, some of which indicate that the story of Gold and Silver could have been much different. First, we have my favorite sprite, Imposter Professor Oak, who's just like regular Professor Oak, only he's angry, as you can see by these 2 really mad eyebrows he has. Now, the implications of an Imposter Oak obviously puts him in the villain zone, so perhaps it wasn't normal Oak, but Imposter Oak, who went to visit his good friend Mr. Pokemon, who I'm going to assume was also originally evil, and perhaps they would have led the player astray. And then after you left on your journey, Imposter Oak would have tried to date your mom. Something easily accomplished, seeing as the Pokemon Lab in Silent Hill contains an oak inside it. As to whether it's the imposter or the real one, I'm not really sure because his eyebrows aren't well defined. Still, it's a possibility. Or perhaps Imposter Oak had more evil plans and was in league with Team Rocket, leading us to our next unused sprite, Giovanni. While nowhere to be found in the final games, Giovanni is alive and well in this demo, and is hanging out inside the radio tower that Team Rocket took over. Perhaps suggesting that Team Rocket was originally not to be in shambles, but instead still a major threat to the Pokemon world. And it's up to you to take them down. Though maybe you would have had some unexpected backup in your fight. From the person who took them down the first time, Red. Now, Red is not an unused sprite, but interestingly enough, in Kanto Town, area land, there's a gym. And who's the leader of this gym? Red. Yes, instead of deciding to live in the mountains for the rest of his life, Red was originally doing something logical with his time. I imagine you would probably run into Red in the Johto region while taking on Team Rocket, with him fighting the good fight alongside you. And then probably telling you he has a gym, and then you go to it later on, and it would be cool. Granted, this is all simply speculation on my part. Regardless, it's fascinating to see what kind of story we might have ended up with. But of course, the real stars of this demo are the Pokemon, as it contains a lot of Pokemon we either would never get, or would get later on, as well as some that just have really weird designs. So let's go over some, shall we? And as a starter, let's start with the starters. Of course, we have Honoguma and his evolutionary line, as well as Kurosu and his evolutionary line, 6 Pokemon we never got. But then things start to get a little weird with Chikorita, who would normally evolve into Bayleaf, a totally logical design for an evolution. However, in this demo, this is your Bayleaf. This is the in-between before Meganium. I don't even know what this thing is. It's like a floating plant salad thing. It's really bizarre, and yes, there are cases where Pokemon evolutions might not resemble their previous or next form, but I think this is a little ridiculous compared to the other evolutionary lines where everything makes sense, and then this doesn't. And while we're on the subject of different looking Pokemon, Hoppip over here looks like a demon, Octillery was originally a tank, Porygon 2 looks ridiculous. Really, I have no clue what they were going for with this one. Remoraid is a pistol, because what child wouldn't want a gun-shaped Pokemon? Aipom looks like a cat. Noctowl originally looked really badass, so kudos for that one. Mantine originally resembled a bird more than anything else, and Politoed looks both happy and really evil. Then we have the early designs for our 3 legendary dog Pokemon. Suicune is just straight up a horse with dog ears. Raikou is an edgelord, while Entei, well, he looks like a dog. A dog on fire, but you know, a dog nonetheless. We also have some unused baby Pokemon, such as Baby Tangela, aka Tangela before it all went to hell. Baby Meowth, which frankly should be a thing, because look at it, it's adorable. Baby Paris, which I was unaware there was any demand for that at all. Baby Goldeen, again, not really sure there was high demand for that one either, at least not from me. Now, Baby Growlithe, on the other hand, that should have happened, as should have Baby Ponyta and Baby Vulpix, but not Baby Doduo, just because it lacks consistency. It goes from 3 heads to 2 heads back to 3 heads. And of course we have Baby Grimer, who is essentially a puddle. Also, some baby Pokemon had some different designs, like Elekid, who had no arms, or Pichu, who is a soccer ball. Then we have unused evolutions, or early forms of evolutions that still weren't used until later on. We have a pre-evolution for Girafarig, which looks more like a ghost Pokemon than anything else. The original design for Tangela's evolved form, Tangrowth. An unused evolution for Quillfish that looks like a Corsola. An early version of Lickitung's evolved form, Licky Licky. An unused evolution for Pinsir that was more likely than not reworked into Heracross. An unused evolution for Farfetch'd, which is a shame, because that Pokemon almost had a chance at not sucking. It's too bad. But the most bizarre unused evolution is this thing. This was going to be Ditto's evolved form, which I can't even begin to understand how that... Why? Ditto is a Pokemon whose only ability is to transform into other Pokemon. So what the hell would an evolved form of it do? I can't for the life of me fathom anything logical, and I have a feeling that neither did Game Freak, and that's probably why it was scrapped. And lastly, for evolutions, we have Leafeon, originally to appear in Gen 2 until Game Freak decided that we just weren't ready for it. You'll get Espeon and Umbreon, that's it, and you'll like it. Then we have some Pokemon that just didn't make the cut in a mini segment I like to call What the Hell Are You Supposed to Be? First up, we have Slowbro's tail. Which, how does this even work? Does the Slowbro, die, and then the tail decides it wants to be a Pokemon now? And at that point, is it still connected to Shelder? I'm not really sure. We have this thing, which is supposedly a panda/ghost Pokemon. Looks silly either way. And then we have some Nightmare Fuel with another ghost Pokemon, this thing, which is just a doll with a pin poking through it. It doesn't even look like a living thing. I have no clue what Game Freak was thinking for this one. Kids will love the scary doll with the pin through it, they thought. Next we have something that reminds me of a Karibo from Yu-Gi-Oh! An electric tiger kitty thing. This seal, that was a water-fire type. Interesting that they were messing around with that idea this early on. A cat, who I'm going to assume became Skitty. Super kawaii fish Pokemon. A derpy eel. And a shark that's connected to an anchor just for fun. But that was the Pokemon Gold Silver Space World 1997 demo. As a Pokemon fan, I'm amazed this made its way to the public, even more so that all of us can experience it and decode it together as a family. So if you're a fan of Pokemon, do yourself a favor. Head over to the cutting room floor and download the ROM. You may have to try out a few different emulators to get it working right, but it's well worth the effort to experience what could have been. This has been Gaming Mysteries, and thank you for watching. Hello everyone, and welcome back to End Slate, where I could do the typical thing and just, do End Slate stuff like I normally would, or I could celebrate this rare occasion of getting to experience a prototype of a beloved game. And so, I'm going to sing to you about this whole new world that we live in. 3, 2, I'm not a professional singer, and 1. Everybody wants to be a master, everybody wants to show their skills, everybody wants to get there faster, make their way to the top of the hill. Each time you try, it's gonna get just a little bit better. Each step you climb is one more step up the ladder. It's a whole new world we live in. It's a whole new way to see. It's a whole new place with a brand new attitude, but you still gotta catch 'em all and be the best that you can be. Pokemon Johto. It's a whole new world we live in, but you still gotta catch 'em all and be the best that you can be. Pokemon Johto. Pokemon Johto! God, I suck. The video's over now. Bye, guys.